The Courting by Meinekeime, Chapter 11, The Ball, Draco's Point of View. I had arrived punctually, even some minutes early, because I wanted to check out my rivals. None of them were still going to Hogwarts. That wasn't surprising. Most pure-blood wizards only go to Hogwarts 6 years long. Many of them take over family companies and start living an adult life. I'm pretty sure the 7th year was only invented to accommodate the Muggle system, and Harry wanted a maid with a steady income already. That wasn't accomplishable with Hogwarts. I fixed my cloak and made some small talk while Toppy had one arm around my pant leg. I had to take her with me because of various reasons that I wasn't proud of. I had hoped she could help the house elves of the Prince Grant's household. While looking around, I saw quite some men without a costume or with a +1, and I mentally face-palmed. Slowly, the door to the ballroom opened, and 2 bodyguards checked everyone that entered. All suitors that didn't bring a costume or came with someone that wasn't a suitor were given a card and sent away. I was pretty sure they were howlers, written by the Dark Lord himself. Some men tried bringing in weapons, and those were taken away immediately. After what felt like a lifetime, it was my turn. I gave them my scythe made of papier-mâché, and after they gave it back to me, they looked down at Toppy. I had a little accident in my potions lab, and the fume could kill house elves, so I had to bring her. She will behave and help the other house elves. The man nodded and let me in. Instead of falling over to the buffet, I needed to find the Dark Lord and tell him about Toppy. And hopefully, I would meet Harry too. I turned around and there were too many people. After spotting a white figure on the balcony, I went upstairs, and I was sure Toppy nearly tripped a couple times. When I reached the figure, I giggled a little. I guess it was Lord Grant's mission to embarrass his son. He was wearing his usual robe, but had painted his face like a skull, and wore a hat and a mustache. He even painted his hands. Poor Harry. Lord Malfoy. How nice to see you, the Dark Lord said. Good evening to you too, Lord Grant. I was asking if Toppy was able to help in the kitchen. I couldn't leave her at home today. The white-skinned man just chuckled. You know this happened to your father too. Of course Toppy can help, as long as she makes some of her pumpkin cakes. With those words, Toppy disappeared. I felt like something was touching me, but when I looked around, there was no one. Strange. I just wanted to start a talk with Lord Grant when I heard a voice. No, Mother, you can't wear that. It's too embarrassing. That was sweet Harry. Then wait until you see your father. That was Snape. The two came into our direction, and Severus wore makeup similar to his husband's, just that he wore a rather feminine robe that had put a dark flower crown on his head, in addition to his jewelry. And there was Harry. He had changed his glasses for contacts that made his eyes pop. He wore a beautiful black and white Victorian-style dress, and it looked like there was some blood dripping down his long teeth. Dark accessories made his skin look even paler, and he had pinned his hair up in a difficult Victorian-style updo. In one word, he looked perfect. Good evening, Lord Prince, I said and kissed the ring Snape wore. And good evening, Harry. I first kissed his lordship rings, then the back of his hand. Good evening, Draco. I can't quite tell what you're dressed as. I released his hand and put my hood over my head. I came as death himself. Sadly, I won't be able to take you with me, King of the Vampires, but I might be able to get a second dance. Harry blushed and nodded his head. I felt like someone was touching me again, but there wasn't anybody. I was about to compliment Harry on his sewing skills. His dress was definitely handmade, with the way he was worried about destroying it, when someone pushed me out of the way. "Hello, Lord Prince Grant." There was a man I didn't know taking my place, and I knew that there wasn't a point in fighting him. I had enough self-control to leave and go down to the other suitors. I met a group of half-Veelas that were talking about the newest brooms. They were all around 25 and in the same hobby Quidditch team. They were talking about the numbers 2003 when we heard the orchestra stop playing and the Dark Lord and his son started moving. Harry seemed to be highly concentrated, and he had selected quite a difficult dance for the beginning. "Hey, is it me or has Harry gained some weight?" Jack, the keeper, asked. When I looked near, I saw it too. His face wasn't as bony as it once was, and his arms seemed like they finally gained some flesh under the skin. I nodded to Jack and took a sip from my punch. Finally, I feared for his health when I first met him. Luke, a chaser, and I could only agree with him. While watching Harry and the Dark Lord dance, I didn't notice someone approaching our group. "Zach, where have you been?" I turned to greet the new man, but I pulled my hand back as fast as I pulled it out. There stood the man that had pushed me away from Harry. I tried asking for the first dance, but he kind of got angry. His friends started laughing and smirked. "That means negative points, buddy. We told you he would never give up his first dance with his father." Now they were laughing, but wait until Zach sees who got the second dance. When I heard the music stop, I turned around and gave Zach my scythe. "Can you hold this for a moment?" "Thank you." Then I took off into Harry's direction before too many others could approach him. I placed my drink on a table and asked Harry to dance. "We will be dancing the Whistler, so be prepared."
He warned me with a playful undertone. Well, I was happy I had taken a dancing lesson last week, or I would have embarrassed myself. I led Harry out onto the middle of the ballroom and got into position. I carefully gripped his waist in fear I would hurt him. He gripped my shoulders rather forcefully. I guessed he was afraid. "Everything will be fine," I assured him and made my first step. "Just follow me, everything's alright." We started turning and moving, and I tried keeping it easy for Harry's sake. I would rather be called a two-left-footed dancer rookie than make Harry feel bad. Over the time, I felt how the submissive came nearer to me and even let me pick him up for one figure, but that was it. But as long as he wasn't uncomfortable, everything was fine. I noticed that others had started dancing too. Pairs of two had formed, and the biggest part of the guests were on the dance floor. Strangely, they were always near Harry's pants, and they gave me strange looks. When the music stopped, Harry practically collapsed on me. I took him into the back of the room and let him rest. "Do you want to sit down?" "I can't." "You want to lean on me?" "Yes, please." He slung his arms around my upper body and leaned his head onto my chest. I rubbed his back with one arm and steadied him with the other. "Do I need to call you enforcer?" Harry just shook his head and asked, "Do you have some of those towels you sent me?" Now I understood the problem. I took him into the foyer and laid him down on the sofa. His shoes were hurting his tiny feet. I took out 2 of the towels and wrapped them around his feet. Then I placed a resizing spell on the shoes so they wouldn't hurt him anymore. "How did you do that?" he asked. "I will tell you my next letter, my dear, but I think it's time to return. Sadly." End of chapter 11.